In this video, I'm going to talk about, does moisture escape a down bag in the cold? I had a question from a viewer and hopefully a subscriber, thank you very much, Kayla Kurtz. Thank you very much for the great content. I always appreciate your videos and books. Have you experienced any issues with moisture escaping a sleeping bag with a Gore-Tex Windstopper fabric? I have the -40 Phantom from Mountain Hardware, but I haven't needed to dry anything yet more than slightly damp. I have definitely found a lot of ice covering my sleeping bag in the morning though. I always looking for new ways to deal with moisture and ice in my tent and everything on it. All right, Kayla Kurtz, thank you very much for the question. So here you go. There's a bit of physics that actually works with a sleeping bag, whether you have a microfiber or something like a Gore Windstop or even an extreme light fiber. There's a couple of physics factors that are working here. First is your body, as you know, of course, perspires. And when you're working out and sweating, very clear. But what you don't actually see is that when you sweat, you actually transition that moisture from water to vapor. And that transition from water to vapor takes a lot of energy, and that's why sweat actually cools us down, because that transition from liquid water to vapor sucks up like 4.1 kilocalories per whatever. I can't remember the calculation, but that aside, stay tuned for point number 5, and the critical thing here is that when you are warming up that moisture and it vaporizes, it penetrates your sleeping bag immediately or super quick. So what happens is you are worth about a 100-watt light bulb, old school light bulb, not LED light bulb, and depending on your body size. And that heat begins to drive the vapor away, because that's how heat works and that's how water vapor works, is that from a heat source, the moment the molecule of water is actually broken loose from the water to the vapor transition, I'm an engineer here, by the way, that those molecules start to disperse out, and yes, it absolutely gets into the down. But as long as you are warm enough and generating enough heat, the water vapor penetrates the down, gets into the down, hits the surface, and then goes out. That's why you can't use a solid plastic sleeping bag, because the down will be completely soaked amazingly quickly. But the Gore-Tex or the GWS Gore Windstopper fabric, that water molecule hits the Gore-Tex, and as long as the vapor transition temperature and pressure, the vapor pressure is critical for the Gore-Tex to allow that moisture to transition through the bag, it will escape into your tent and out in the air, no problem. You may have noticed that your tent is sometimes covered in rime frost and all sorts of things. That's actually generally from you in super cold temperatures, so that is a big deal. I've got a solution for that in one moment. Stay tuned. The second factor is the condensation from the air. Even though you might be in a super cold location, it can actually have a high humidity. Let's say the Arctic, where you're near the ocean. Even though it's crazy cold, the humidity from the water still fills the air. There isn't much water carrying capacity, but the water that is actually in the air can completely coat your tent, your sleeping bag, and everything. That's the big problem. Now, here's the big issue. In your big, warm, beautiful, -40-degree Phantom, you're warm enough, but are you warm enough to drive that water vapor through the down to the surface and out, or is it totally inadequate? And that's the danger here, is that water vapor can convert back to liquid and then freeze solid on your bag. Ideally, of course, assuming you're not dead, is that when you're laying in your bag, that heat vector from your body outward continues to push that water vapor out. However, people that are in the Arctic or doing Arctic Ocean expeditions, usually what they do is they use a down bag inside and then a synthetic bag outside to get the warmth, knowing that that water vapor will travel through the down, travel through the bag, continue out to the synthetic bag, and eventually make the transition from water, which very quickly converts to ice. And that's why down bags are, it's really not that great in the Arctic, because in the Arctic, you're oftentimes you're near moisture, if not the water, open water, 28.5 degrees Fahrenheit, is because the moisture content is super high in the air. Even though there isn't a lot of moisture there, the moisture that is there is actually pretty insidious. Now, point number 4, this is a key thing, that frost, you need to remove that from your sleeping bag every day. And what I literally recommend is a cup. So when you get up and you see the frost all over your sleeping bag, you're holy moly, I generally don't get too much, is I take my cup and I just start scooping it off without damaging any of the sewing. And I will fill my cup with frost from me transpiring and the water that I'm drinking actually goes through my sleeping bag, and I take this cup to get as much of that frost off in the morning as possible. In addition to scraping the frost off of my tent, I literally spend a good 5 minutes scraping the frost off my tent, whether I'm by myself or with an expedition or climbing partner or camping partner, and we spend the time scraping that ice off everything. That way it gets in the cup, you tap it out, and you really reduce the problems, because over time, that moisture in your bag will start to turn to ice, and you will, over time, get colder and colder and colder. Your down won't be as down. It will be much more mushy and miserable. And that's the key, number 5. You need to do everything that you can in the morning with all the other things that you've gotten going on. You need to dry your bag, whether you use the sun, you use your body heat, or what else. I will put a link below to my video on how to dry your down bag in super cold conditions. This is a critical thing to know to keep your down dry. So even though, yeah, it seems okay now, but after a week of not taking care of this problem, it can become a big issue. My name is Linsdau. I'm a polar explorer and professional adventurer. Please check out links below to my books. Antarctic Tears, Lost at Winnie Corner, Adventure Expedition 1, How to Keep Your Feet Warm in the Cold, the Jackson Hole Hiking Guide, the most crucial knots to know, and the 2024 Total Eclipse Guides. As well as, please check out my shows, Antarctic Tears and World Beyond. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe so you can get more content like this.